Alright, Bennett, first off, I'm gonna open this by saying, should you go see Badlands? Absolutely. Absolutely. Predator Badlands is it's a hell of an experience. This was the movie, just like Prey, just like Killer of Killers, that the franchise needed to set it back on course. And I hope. Now, here's the thing. Predator Badlands, it's lightning in a bottle. You won't be able to do Badlands twice. You know, of course, bring back the surviving character, spoiler alert, Deck, the Yautja, the hunter. Of course, bring him back for future installments, but use the character of Deck to show us the rest of the galaxy that we have not seen in the Predator/Alien universe. Because, yes, if anyone doesn't know, they exist in the same universe. Predators and Xenomorphs. And they are constantly at it with one another. Now, as I play Predator Hunting Grounds for background footage, there will be spoilers. Oh, it just dropped the other day, Friday. It dropped on the 7th. I saw it on the 9th, so I've let it sit in for about a week. So, the way the movie starts, it starts off really good. You get an opening little title card, it's not really a title crawl, it's a black screen but with big words telling you, Yautja are prey to none, friend to none, predator to all. And it is the Yautja Codex 0422-25. That is something that the Yautja go by. That is one of their codes of honor. Because if anybody knows from all the other Predator films, or at least from the ones that we know, because I know Predators, the third film, we're dealing with bad blood hunters. We're not dealing with actual blooded hunters. Now, the way the film starts, the film opens on the Predator homeworld of Yautja Prime. And on Yautja Prime, you can tell very quickly, you're like, damn, this is the environment they come from. It's like desert worlds, or, it shows that the landscape of Yautja Prime is massive. It has different biomes. At least the Predator we see, he comes from the jungle clan, but we don't really see them living in like a jungle area of the planet. You really see the skills of the jungle hunters in Deck when he goes to the planet Gehenna, or Gehenna, whichever way you want to say it. Either way is either Gehenna or Gehenna. The main Predator Deck, it took me a little while to get used to his design before the movie, but then the movie explains why he is the way he is, why he looks the way he does, and how he is treated. This is very unique to the Yautja species, or at least to us seeing. We're used to seeing the Yautja as hunters, as killers, as these unstoppable monsters that could kill us and take our skulls as trophies. But when you show us this film through the perspective of the hunter themselves, especially a young blood, it gives you an idea of, wow, the Yautjas, they have their own codes, they have their own ethics, they have their own laws, they have, their own honor code system. Now, a lot of people are gonna call what the father of Deck, and there's another Predator in the film who we see briefly called QA, and QA is Deck's older brother. Without much words. Because the one thing that was going to be difficult is, how do you get these Yautja to express emotion? Because throughout the film, people are going to say, oh, there's no human characters in the film. the Weyland-Yutani synthetics do not count as humans. So this is literally a whole movie that is about the Yautjas. Yes, the connection to Weyland-Yutani is there, but only through the synthetics, and of course Weyland-Yutani sticking its nose where it doesn't need to be. And that's them. That is how Weyland-Yutani functions. They have their own task that's in the film. And you have two particular synthetics that fall along the line of all the crazy synthetics that we've seen throughout the Alien franchise, such as Thea and Tessa. And Thea and Tessa are basically sister synthetics, but one is a, you know, how do I say the words here? A very go happy, go lucky, I want to be out in the field, you know, I don't care if my life's in danger, I just want to see and explore things. That's Thea. Now Tessa, also played by Elle Fanning, she's an evil synthetic bitch. Tessa is an evil bitch, and she got her comeuppance in the film. You know, spoiler warning, of course, you know, she's gonna, anybody that does wrong in these movies get their comeuppance at some point. So, but the thing about it is, throughout the beginning of the film, you see Dek and Kuwei train within a cave. You know, Kuwei is trying to train his brother to go on his first hunt, because he sees the potential in his little brother. Something that Endor, who is Dek and Kuwei's father, who is currently the leader of the Jungle Hunter clan, he views Dek as a disgrace because Dek is tiny. Dek doesn't have that, what the Yautjas call that fire. They don't have that warrior fire that is known within their race. And what I mean by their warrior's fire, you see in Predator 1, you see it in Predator 2. You see it in, yes, even the one that people don't like, the Predator. You see the Predator's warrior spirits, and how they are, and how they present themselves, like how they choose to fight and go buck wild, you know, things like that. But the difference about Dek is very, very human-like. You know, he has more qualities that you would find in somebody that you're trying to befriend, whether you're a different species. Dek is a predator in a way that Dek is a Yautja predator that we can trust our life in to not be killed by him. Because the character of Dek, he's very driven of his task. He wants to do what he needs to do.
How many of these guys
if you stand in his way, then of course you'll die. But if you don't stand in his way and you offer some form of assistance, you know, you have to basically find a workaround where they don't work with nobody, you know, or at least they don't invoke the group hunter laws. This is something that comes from the Predator comics, and in the Predator comics, a Yautja can go on the hunt by themselves, and if there's other Yautjas hunting in the vicinity, they can choose to either team up to take the prey together, or stay out of each other's way and allow each other to do their respective hunts. You know, because one of the big rules is that you never take another hunter's kill, or take credit for another hunter's kill. This is something within the Yautja society, and if you do either one of those things, it results in death. Now, the universe of the films and the comics are separate, so they could change the rules of how the hunts work in public, like when they're on their hunts and how they choose to go about it. It's still totally up in the air of what they can choose to do, but for the most part, they keep the overall essence of the rules intact, of the predators and their hunting laws and their hunting rules. Now, Dek, however, he isn't even given a chance to prove himself. He wants to prove himself, like he does, but the father, Endor, gives them no time, or at least doesn't give him time, or doesn't even give Kuwei the time to continue to train him. Their father, Endor, feels that only in death will Dek honor us. Basically, the vibe you're going to get throughout this movie is Dek and his father, Endor, have a Prince Zuko and Fire Lord Ozai kind of relationship, where he's trying his best, he tried to be the best son, or he's trying to be the best he can be, but he's still deemed as a failure in the eyes of his father. And that is very similar. Like, I picked up that vibe very quickly when I was watching the movie. I'm like, okay, if Deck's not gonna get killed by his father, I got the feeling Deck's gonna get disgraced by his father. And make no mistake, Deck doesn't get disgraced. Something different happens at the end for Deck, which I will tell you later, which was the last thing I'd ever thought I would see. Like, to see a character become. So, when you're going throughout the movie, what's up, Knight? When Endor shows up on the scene during Kuwei and Deck's training, Deck shows a lot of respect for his father, and he tries to greet him in a respectful manner. But what does his father do? His father just doesn't even acknowledge he's there unless it's time for him to die. Now, I can understand the kind of Yautja that Deck's father is. He's an elder Yautja, and you would expect, okay, I expect this of my sons. And if they slack, you know, I still think death is an extreme punishment, because you really don't know in the film, did Deck do something? Did he fail a previous test? Because it seems like he didn't fail any tests yet, he was already training for a test. Their biggest test in the film, or at least for him, is to hunt and kill a creature that has killed many of his species, which that creature, you know, it's told in the trailers. Well, the name's not in the trailers, but if anybody has seen the behind the scenes or watched the director's interviews before the film, we all know what the creature's called. It's called a Kalisk. And a lot of people were thinking that, oh, maybe the Kalisk has xenomorph traits. I thought the same thing because of the color and some of what it can do. But no, it's a completely unique creature. And that's something I gotta say about this movie, is that the creature designs, the alien world itself of Igena, it is beautiful, dangerous, and you could really feel that this is where the hunters go to prove themselves. Now, honestly, what would have been cool is if this was the same planet that Adrian Brody's character and the other characters from the movie Predators. It would have been unique if the planet Gena was the planet they were dropped on. You know? But that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to be its own planet, and the planet from Predators is its own thing. It's still a missed opportunity, in my opinion. Now, before Kuwei even is given the order to kill his brother, Kuwei already has chosen that he values his brother more than he values what his father thinks. And that just shows you that amongst predators, there is brotherhood. There is a sense of family. There is the sense of duty. And when Deck watches his brother Kuwei die, at least Kuwei goes down fighting. Kuwei, without any words, the character of Kuwei, without saying any words to his father, basically is like, I choose my brother over you. My brother can't be a hunter. The old ways are not as what you think they are. And that's another theme. Even though it's not really at the forefront, one of the themes in this film is the old ways versus the new ways. You know, for many generations and centuries, the Yautjas have had their way of what they do or how they handle things. But there has been civil wars among their people. And that was also explained briefly within Predators, the third, where you have regular Yautja versus Bad Bloods, or aka these Berserker Predators, which are bigger, faster, meaner, sleeker type of Yautja. And there are multiple different kinds of Yautja shown in the comics, shown in multiple video games. Even now, you can see how their designs are changing, but their designs also remain similar to the designs that we know. And that was a big thing going into Predator Badlands, that a lot of people were like, oh, we don't like Deck's appearance, he's too this, he's too that. But in my head, I was like, if they explained it in the film, and if the reason's good enough, like, if there's an in-universe explanation for like having, if you have a nitpick, and it's explained very smart, and it's explained in a way that makes sense, then okay, my nitpick can go out the window. And really, as I watched the movie, a lot of my fears and nitpicks were slowly being dialed back. Don't get me wrong. There's actually still a few issues I had with the film, which is, I think it should have been a little longer. It should have really focused on a lot more scenes of Deck and Thea really understanding one another. Like, have Thea explain from what she knows of human life and how humans function, because at this point in Deck's life, I doubt he's ever even come across a human, so he doesn't understand, like, why do the Yautja have such a hard time fighting humans. Because you can see Yautja can fight any other species unless it's a species that's big enough to tear their asses apart, or xenomorphs, but humans are the only other species in the universe that could fight a Yautja. And that's something that, whether you think so or not, Yautja actually do enjoy that. Yautja actually look for that. If you're a human, let's for example, if we've seen, everyone has seen Prey, most of you have seen Killer of Killers, so you know the ending where a predator species, like the predator species, if you're a warrior that defeats them and they value and respect you, they will carbonite freeze you to basically preserve the warrior within you and have you fight in their arenas to prove your warrior spirits. You know? And you can tell there's been a lot of fights in that arena, whether it be from humans, whether it be from different species. You already know the Yautja are no joke in how they do things. So, at least in this movie, I'm glad that it stayed in one location. It stayed on the planet Genna. We weren't like jumping offward back to Yautja Prime to see what Endor and the others were doing. Now, the only way that could have worked is if they did something like that, was that if Endor, which this is something the trailers had me believe, that Endor and other Yautja were gonna be hunting Deck. You know, hunting him until he can get to the Kalisk, and then if he proves himself, like, I honestly thought that maybe Deck would kill the Kalisk in front of his dad, and his dad would then respect him. The movie really took the expectations I had, and in the good way, it flipped the expectations on their head, and I didn't expect what was coming. You know, I was just in awe of how the story presented itself. You know, without dialogue, or at least without pure English dialogue, because the Yautja, he doesn't speak English. They don't. They use voice modulators in the other films to mimic your voice. So here you can actually hear the guttural movements in their mouth, and with the mix of both CGI and prosthetic effects, it really brings the Yautja to life. And I know a lot of people want prosthetic only for Yautjas, but sometimes that doesn't always work. You need to add a little bit of CG to help give the character some life, especially when it comes to speaking in certain ways. Like, I doubt you can have prosthetics do a lot of those motions that it seems to move in their mouth to make them look real. Now, after shit hits the fan and Deck watches his brother die, Deck is sent on autopilot through his brother's ship, which was the last thing his brother did before being beheaded by their father, to transport Deck to the planet Genna, because he has faith in his brother to basically defeat the Kalisk. What I thought was that him and his brother would have probably killed the Kalisk together, because I doubt Kuei would have left his brother alone to do that fight. But it really puts Deck forward. Deck is alone, so to speak. The moment he lands on this planet and he gathers his weapons, the fucking fauna of the planet, yes, the fauna, fucking the planet Genna, at least in my opinion, the planet Genna is basically Australia on a Good Friday. Okay? When I was looking at the planet Genna, I was looking at everything that people say what Australia must be like. I don't know why I got those vibes. It just, the planet Genna gave me the whole vibe of, this must be Australia as a fucking planet. And with all the alien life on there, and with all the weird life forms being discovered in Australia, I wouldn't be surprised if the planet Genna and the screenwriters and all that took inspiration for the planet to make the planet itself for the movie. So, Deck, however, he is learning to survive on this planet while doing his task. And he gets knocked around. He's not a seasoned hunter. And this is a lot of things people gotta get used to when they're supporting this character or looking into this guy. He is a Yautja that is learning along the way. Not every predator was a bad motherfucker out the gate. They had to become the Yautjas we knew them to be. Like, the character Wolf. I know a lot of people, I'm going to use this as an example, sidetrack. Everybody hates AVP and AVP Requiem. Okay? But what do they love the most? They love the Predator Wolf. The Predator throughout that whole film. And I loved the subtle Easter eggs in this film to the character of Wolf. Since Wolf comes from two movies which are not canon, basically, in my head, I'm thinking, why does Deck have a broken tusk, like the character Wolf? And there's a lot of these wolf references. You know, Thea gives an example of how wolves hunt their prey and stuff like that. In my head, throughout this whole movie, I'm thinking, is Deck going to be this universe's version of Wolf? You know, this canon version of the character Wolf? I thought that, but then that's something they also didn't do. Again, it was an expectation that I thought was going to happen. That didn't happen, and I wasn't upset that it didn't happen. As the film goes on, you really see how smart. See, this is what I think a lot of people are going to like about Deck. Deck is not just I'm going to go in, I'm going to cause all this havoc to lead out my targets and to hunt them in the middle of chaos. Because, for lack of a better word, especially in Predator 2, which is my favorite Predator film, the Predator was hunting in so much chaos. You know, you have the gang wars, you have the military involved, you got all this shit happening. You know, so you would think, why would a predator go through this mess because he could possibly get himself caught? And yes, that is the weakness of other predators throughout the series. It's some of them, either their hubris or too much confidence in their own skills would get them killed. But as you go through this film, all these little moments, like, you really need to read Deck's face. That's one thing you really gotta look at. Deck's face emits a lot of emotion, and the actor who plays him, he's playing him in a way that we have never seen a predator be portrayed before. You know, they're used to being portrayed as these unstoppable monsters that it's like they can't be reasoned, they can't be bargained, they can't be negotiated under certain circumstances. Because if there's one thing that is kept intact, that I'm glad that's been kept intact since the original Predator, this premise was expanded upon in Predator 2. Now, Predator 3, those are bad bloods, so of course they'll break this rule. And you even see it in The Predator and the movie Prey. If somebody is not a threat, or they don't pose a I was about to say pred and threat. If they don't pose a threat to the pred himself, to the Yautja, they'll leave you alone. Like, if you're someone who's dying of sickness and they can see it through your scanners, they will leave you alone. If a woman is pregnant, like in AVP2, the Predator, he could see the pregnancy, the embryo inside of her, and he was like, he just put her down. The same thing with Predator 1, when the girl Anna ran off, and I think it was Mac, or one of the characters, not Mac. It was one of the characters that chased after her, and then I think it was Hawkins, one of the two. Oh, one of the ones. He got gutted in front of Anna, but the Yautja left her alone. He just took the body, he went off. And it puts the idea in your head that, okay, wait a minute. They don't attack the unarmed or pregnant women. And I noticed that they themselves don't even harm women. Yautja don't really harm women. So, unless they're obviously fighting you back in some sense, because there has been women that have fought Yautja before, like in the comics. So it's like a weird gray area. You know, I would like to think that the reason that Yautja are more lenient towards women is because in the Yautja culture, which has been around in the comics, so before a lot of these hypersensitive man babies bitch saying, oh, if they introduce female predators, it disrupts the lore, it's feminist and all that, they've existed beforehand. And in the continuity, it's confirmed that Yautja female Yautjas, like the mothers and the women, or queens, they are more ferocious than the men. They can be more dangerous than the men. The way they describe it is that the Yautja men handle things with more tact, where the female ones handle things like they're freaking berserkers. Which makes me wonder, was the Grendel Yautja from Predator Killer of Killers, like that one that was wearing all the bone armor, was that a female Yautja? Because that character fit the height requirements, it fit the ferocity, it seemed more ferocious than the other male predators that were in the film. So it's a lot to take in, because I know that's something people will not be used to seeing, but it opens up the doors, it opens up the windows for there to be more, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, they should continue to expand on the Yautja themselves. You know, the Yautja lore. And in this movie, people will say, well, they did that in this movie. I said, no, we followed the hero's journey. We followed a Yautja rising to become a hunter and to find his place. This is not really a film about the society, about the culture as a whole. That's still something that they could do in a sequel. You could do in future movies. With this, you could really dive into making more movies following Deck, or hell, create different Yautja characters. Just show that Yautja are not always these demon hunter, alien hunter, these demonic alien hunters from space. You know, every species has their own quips. Like, what we know is that, at least compared to the xenomorphs, I'd rather take the Yautja species as an ally. Or at least if there was a xenomorph in my vicinity and there was a Yautja in my vicinity, I would, even if it risks me getting killed, I would literally go over to offer surrender to the Yautja and be like, yo bro, there's a xenomorph here, I ain't got no weapons, let me live, and I'll point the direction of where he's at so you can go kill him. Hell, you can take my weapons if you want. Here's a tribute to you, great hunter. Like, I don't know, something. I know I'm getting a little sidetracked. Now, also in the film, when Deck meets Thea, the Weyland-Yutani synthetic, this is where it becomes a buddy adventure film. Because she gets the Chewbacca, not the Chewbacca, she gets the C-3PO treatment where he straps her up to his back, Kind of like how C-3PO was strapped up to Chewbacca's back in Empire Strikes Back. That's how she ends up through most of the movie. She's trying to talk to him. She has a translator that allows her to speak his language. Basically, we can hear her speaking English, but in his ears, he hears his language of the Yautja language. And the humor between these two, it is subtle but funny. You know, he's, in a way, you can say that the Yautja deck, he is he is the straight man to the comedy of Thea not knowing how to shut the hell up. And you could take it as, well, she's a Weyland-Yutani synthetic, and when they're damaged or glitched, they act and do things like this. So in that sense, this film really respects you knowing both Predator lore and Xenomorph lore. Like, if you have a base lore understanding or a heavy lore understanding of this universe, regardless of which media you're indulging this universe in, you will be able to understand the course of the movie. It's so funny, this film feels like this would be a Predator event film. Like, what's the best way to describe it? This is not an Avengers level movie, obviously. Hell no, not in the slightest. But for like the Predator franchise, I would want to say this is the Predator franchise's this is their Captain America, the first Avenger. But instead of Captain America becoming Captain America, you're having a Yautja becoming a hunter. And yes, the trope of the hero's journey is used in many different mediums, but at least in this one, I always say, you can use familiar tropes, familiar ideas, or familiar forms of storytelling, as long as it is unique to the license you are using. Like, here's an example. When it comes to Star Wars, people like the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order games, but those are considered easy versions of Dark Souls. They're considered Souls-light, and a Souls-light game is basically what gamers with no skill ask the Dark Souls games to have. It's a game on easy. It's a Dark Souls game on easy mode. Think of it like that for this movie. This is a Predator movie. Setting things up very easily, like it's easy to understand. And then as the rest of the movie goes on, you're like, okay, before we even get to the battle with the Callists, before we even get to the involvement of the Weyland-Yutani subplot, and before we even get to the ending, which I didn't expect this with the ending. It's like I said, a lot of what I thought was going to happen in this film got flipped on its head. And I know a lot of people don't like the term subvert expectations, but this is one of those movies where when your expectations are subverted, it doesn't disappoint. The movie doesn't piss you off. It respects your intelligence as like a fan of either series. Now, the one thing that I did not expect was, spoiler alert, Thea's betrayal. This is another thing in this movie that also reminds me of one of my other favorite movies, which is Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. You know how everybody in that movie had their own motivation for A, wanting to get Jack Sparrow back, B, wanting to get the Black Pearl back, or during the final battle in the film with the Maelstrom, with the war between the Dutchman and the Black Pearl, like that. Think of that. But in Predator, here in Badlands, everybody has a motive. you know the Weyland-Yutani are always going to be involved with shit that they got no business being involved in. Now, I would expect maybe Tessa and see what I thought that Tessa and Thea were the same android, but with a split personality due to being damaged by the Kalisk or being damaged by the wildlife. That's honestly what I thought was going to happen. And then again, boom, my whole theory got flipped on its head that Thea is her own android and Tessa is her own android with two distinct personalities, but they're both very manipulative and they both have their own agendas. And you do feel bad for the one character, Thea, where she thinks by siding with her sister that, boom, her sister was going to have her back. Nope. Even synthetics have their own sibling beef, and she was quick to leave her to die. You know, and then it plays into the theme in this film, which is the last theme that I would ever think I would see in a Predator film. And that is the theme of self-discovery and family. That's one thing that is big within Yautja culture, is different clans, the different values of each clan, and the dynamics of their clan, which is their form. Basically, clans in the Predator universe is another term for their family. So you have jungle hunters, you have desert hunters, you have definitely a different hunter from each biome and background. I'm going to use the Predator from Prey for the Yautja from Prey. That one, he comes from a desert wasteland of Yautja Prime because of his biological differences, how they use a lot of more primitive bone-like technology and bone-like armor and tech, but he has a stronger hide. He seems to be more physical. And another thing in this movie, yes, this movie is owned, when Fox was bought by Disney. By mandate, yes, there is a cute alien creature in the film. But the cute alien creature is, yes, it's there to basically put in a cute animal, to put a cute creature, to appeal to certain audiences. I get that. But then the creature plays into the story, and then it becomes an important part of Deck. So you see how in this film, from the very beginning, everything comes to like an intersection. Everything comes to a head in specific parts of this film. Now, like I said, I wish it was longer. The CGI in some areas are rough, especially when you're seeing Deck do some of his acrobatics. But it happens so quick that if you're not looking for it, no, you're not going to notice it. But if you're somebody that always watches movies and you have to analyze movies, you'll notice it firsthand. So a newbie versus a professional, it's like a newbie noticing something that a professional can't see, or a professional can see something that the newbie can't. That's what I'm trying to get at. Now, when we get to, which I feel this is where the film should have been longer, is the middle, the whole adventure. Because as Thea is on Deck's back and he's tracking the Kalisk, they come across all these different alien life, all these hostile life forms that you would think look very familiar to Earth's, to creatures that we have, to animals and reptiles that we have here on Earth. But no, nothing in this movie reminded me of what we had on. None, by a long shot. But here's a slick thing that's actually very unique. Another thing people were disappointed of, that why wasn't the movie rated R? Because even before the trailers, none of the trailers until the later ones Like, the early ones didn't show the rating. And a lot of us thought it was going to be rated R because there's rated R level stuff in this film. But here's the kicker. The film, yes, is PG-13, but since there's no humans in the film, and it's only if you present a movie with red blood and showing humans being bodily dismembered or being ripped to pieces or gushing blood, that's when a movie gets an R rating. But here, every alien life has its own colors. We all know that the Yautja bleed green. That's just the thing, they bleed green. But you have all these other alien creatures that bleed different colors. And in the film, when Deck kills like this giant rhino bull thing, and he splits it in half down the middle, you can see him pulling up the two spines. I assume this creature had two spines. He ripped up a giant pair of freaking spinal cords off of it, gushing with whatever color blood that this creature has. So, and the Weyland-Yutani synthetics, we all know that the synthetics themselves, they have imitation organs, imitation blood, but it's all white and silver. Very similar to the character of Raiden from the Metal Gear games. So, here, however, you can basically see anything that is not a full-flesh human being get ripped apart in this movie. You do see dismemberment, and it is visceral. It really shows that you can push the limits. Again, it's one of those pushes the PG-13 rating limit. And I know a lot of people will be like, well, why don't you just make it rated R? All the other films are rated R. And only the ones that were PG-13 didn't do so well. Yes, you may be right. Aliens vs. Predator 1. That was PG-13. That didn't boat over with a lot of people. But if you notice something, when they killed the humans were either killed off screen or to where the camera didn't see the actual, you would see the end result like a body on the floor, or then you would or a splatter of blood on the wall, something like that. Versus you actually see xenomorphs getting dismembered, you see predators getting impaled through the chest in a PG-13 movie. So don't you notice, don't you see what I mean? That as long as it's not human violence or violence being done to a human, you can do whatever the hell you want and be as vicious and visceral as you want. Because Predator Badlands keeps the spirit of the visceral nature of the Yautja species. It does. And I didn't think it was really going to. I thought it would be diminished. But I was wrong. See, a lot of my fears that I had going into this movie, it's like every time a fear started to pop up, that fear quickly got quelled. And I was just like, yo. I mean, don't get me wrong. Out of all the Predator movies, I would still put this maybe comfortably at a number 3. Because I like Predator 2 the most. Predator 2 is my favorite Predator movie. Yes, I even like it more than the original, and people are gonna say, sacrilege. But, you know, I mean, the second one did what the first one couldn't, which is push the pencils forward. You know? We're pushing pencils, it pushed it forward. What did Badlands do for this franchise? Badlands pushed it forward, and in a very unique direction. You know, you can't have lightning in a bottle twice, and I understand that. So with a Badlands sequel, hell, don't even call it Badlands 2 if they make a sequel. Don't even do that. If you're gonna do a Badlands sequel, keep it with a different, like, always keep the title of Predator in the film. Of course, because you have to. It's oh shit. Speaking of which, I got killed by one. A subtitle. Especially, I would love to see Deck continue in his own series or have him appear in other films going forward. Like, hell, have him making a cameo appearance in a season 2 of Alien Earth, or have him make a cameo in Alien Romulus. Because right now, we don't know specifically what's officially canon from the Alien universe and what's officially canon from the Predator universe that takes place within the Badlands universe, so to speak. But if I was to say this confidently and comfortably, I would like to say that maybe this is how the order of things go. And they're going to be separate from, obviously, because of time period. The chronological order of the Predator movies is... Oh, damn it, I just had it written down, too. Give me a second. I literally just had it written down. There we go. Got it right here. Okay. So if you really want to look at the timeline of the films, you can watch Prey. You can watch Killer of Killers. Then the original Predator. Predator 2. The Predator. Predator 3, which is Predators. And then Predator Badlands. But now, if we're in the if we're going into the the timeline where Badlands takes place, all we know is that Badlands is the only Predator movie that takes place in the far future where the Alien films have taken place. And from what we know, what takes place in the official Aliens continuity that's still tied to the Predatorverse is Alien 1, no. Prometheus, Alien Covenant, Alien 1, Alien Earth, Alien Romulus, Aliens, and I think they eliminated Alien 3 and 4 from the timeline. So I would comfortably place Predator Predator Badlands somewhere around the time frame of Aliens, that film. Like, Aliens could be happening like normal in its own locations. So, who knows? I'm just trying to figure out what could be easier for anyone to figure out. Because unless there's an official continuity timeline by the studios themselves or by the creators, it's hard to place. So for now, it's just like we got to do one thing we all do as fans, and that's speculate on what takes place where and where. Now, here's one thing that I would like to see in the future. Is if Deck is... How do I say this without sounding generic or cheesy, but... Yeah, it's as the Predator timeline and the Alien timeline, it's wonky, very wonky, like the Legends of Zelda timeline. But you can still have at least a concrete... at least you can have some form of a concrete foundation of where to jump off from. But the hardest part is when you start getting to the future time, so to speak, when we start getting close to the future of Earth in the Aliens series, that's where it starts to muddy the water for the Predator franchise. Because right now, as we know, Badlands is the only one that takes place in the very distant future where what is the years that the Aliens films take place, or at least the sequel Aliens and Alien Earth? I at least gotta know where that's at. And Keo, wherever the hell your ass is at, get in here and help me. So, or get in here and we do some discussions. So, also, another thing I really loved is the weapons. Predators always have cool... The Predators always have cool weapons. That's just a given. But here, my favorite weapon is that fucking sword. I know we're so used to having predators with wrist gauntlets, or they're using melee-looking swords that they carry, but this sword that they have, it's like a cross between what's the name of that sword? A sycamore? A scythamere? Whatever the fuck that sword is called. Y'all know what I mean? Like a sabre, like a Chinese sabre or saber sword, kind of like that. But it ejects from the top of the hilt, and then it has a red laser line beam, kind of like a lightsaber. So it's like a sword, like a lightsaber sword, and this shit cuts through everything. So I was just like, Jesus Christ. And then the theater I was in, the seat had this thing like built into it where every time the Predator used his weapon or he ignited that sword, it sent like a little vibrating rush up the back of the seat. And I was like, I ain't trying to get killed. You know, and throughout that whole movie, I was glad to see it. You know, the way you got to see this movie, if you can't afford to see it in IMAX, then of course see it on a really good screen, at a movie theater screen. But this movie, it's one of the rare few movies where I've seen in IMAX, and I was glad I saw it in IMAX because I was working that day, or not working that day, like I was just tired that day, and I didn't know if I was going to stay up, so I was hoping maybe the movie's louder to keep me up. No, don't. When the moment this movie, like, there is no time for you to actually get up to even go pee. That's what it's like watching this movie. You don't even want to get up to go take a piss. So yes, you're going to risk blowing out your kidneys, but you'll be damn sure you don't want to miss a moment. Now, is everyone going to ask? No. There is no physical cameo from Arnold Schwarzenegger. But we do know, because of other material and canon material, that Dutch is alive. Dutch is at least, if I remember correctly, which one of the DLCs in this game is canon, the one I'm playing, it's called Dutch 2035. So Dutch has been around fighting other hunters and predators. Now, are they going to do what they did in the comics with the character of Dutch? In the comics, Dutch became a clan leader. Like a leader to a tribe of Yautja. And that was because he killed so many of them that they basically bowed in respect. And said, bro, would you like to lead this? Basically, like, lead this clan for us. Ooh, a piggy. So, that's the timeline of the first 3. Well, if you're not busy, the party's open, so you can verbally, you know, because I'm trying to bend my neck to look back and forth. So, maybe Keo will join us for a appearance. That's the timeline of the first 3. Now, the one part of the movie that I actually thought, this is, like I said, this is actually another part of the movie that flipped my expectations on its head. In the trailers, we all see that what it looks like is that the final battle was going to take place between Dek and the Kalisk. Now, Dek does fight the Kalisk, and homie puts up a hell of a fight. It makes me wonder, what does his dad not see in him? What does his father not see in this boy? Because all I gotta say is, Dek can fight. Granted, he gets knocked on his ass a lot, but Dek is determined. Dek does have that warrior Yautja spirit. He just doesn't utilize it. Or at least, probably doesn't know how to utilize it. Now, when they go to the den of the Kalisk, which the den reminds me of going into, even though it's outside, and we all know that Xenomorph Queens, their stuff takes place inside. What I saw was like this den looked like a damn hive on the outside. You got all these bodies scattered everywhere. You got all these damn Weyland-Yutani synthetics all torn the fuck up by the Callisk. Give me a second, I'm just murdering everybody. Hold on, you ain't getting away from me. Even if one of you lives, I don't care as long as I got the most of the team. There's still one more. Don't worry, I'm gonna get him. Oh shit, what the hell? Oh fuck, I gotta heal myself. I was damaged, hold up. Cause I would be damned if I'm gonna get killed. Oh, what the fuck, bro?
What am I looking at?
Oh my... Like, can I not find a fucking solid spot to... Woo! I got nervous for a second. Give me 1 second while I collect myself, and then we'll get back to the subject of the movie. Man, I'm damned. This fucker gonna get away from me. Hold, heal up real quick. There we go. So yeah. Anyway, back to the fight with the Callisk. The fight with the Callisk, it's not the final battle of the film. That's another thing. The final battle of the film becomes Alien. Or it becomes Aliens. If that makes any sense. So, anyway, when Deck is fighting the Callisk, you really see that this is like, even though something told me, I was like, we're at the final battle of the film already? And I was just like, alright. I mean, the movie didn't feel super short, it didn't feel super long, but then, as the fight with the Callisk goes on, you forget that Weyland-Yutani synthetics are out there. And you know, the one thing that you do not do during a hunt, especially if a Yautja is hunting, you do not get involved. You do not get in the middle of the hunter and his prey. And when Deck fights the Callisk, you could see in that boy's face, he's frightened. He is definitely frightened. But the Callisk does bring out Deck's warrior spirit. And in a lot of ways, Deck proves. He does prove himself. But that's the thing. Who does he prove himself to? Is he proving himself to the audience? or if he is he proving himself to his father. And when you realize in the movie that Deck is not really proving himself to be a hunter for his father, Deck is proving to himself, not for his father, he's proving to himself that he is a hunter worthy of his people, of his name. And this is also what's going to subvert a lot of people's expectations here. Because Deck and the Kalisk, in the middle of their fight, they get captured by the Weyland-Yutani. And this is where we get to the climax, at least the final act battle of the film. Thea's been captured, threatened for deactivation. Deck's been captured because Weyland-Yutani shouldn't be fucking with shit they shouldn't be fucking with. So, Deck and Thea, after the betrayal, after all this, they still found reconciliation. You know, a Yautja, an alien species, found reconciliation with his... Basically, it's a joke throughout the movie. He sees her as a tool because, yes, she's a robot and can be used as a tool. But then, as the course of the movie, he relies on her knowledge. You know, Thea is very smart. Thea knows certain species, and she does help Deck throughout the film. So, it really comes to a matter of who becomes your, like... Where do you find allies, and where do you find people that can be on your side in a task as dangerous as this? Now, what makes the Kalisk so damn terrifying is the son of a bitch can regenerate. Yeah, spoiler warning, this motherfucker can regenerate like Majin Buu. You can cut its head off. That doesn't do shit. You can cut off its appendages. That don't do shit. The Predator itself, or any Yautja that has fought this creature, you can understand why this creature can tear them the fuck up. But in this battle with the Kalisk, before we get to the final act, you learn that the Kalisk, that this whole time, was a mother. And you're like, what? Yep, it's a mother. And something happened earlier in the film that was so subtle that you would understand why the events happen in this fashion. So now, anyway, back to this. So after Deck and Thea and the Kalisk get captured, they're all being transported to this base, to this Weyland-Yutani base. And again, no humans in the film. None whatsoever. This base is ran solely by synthetics and ran by the Mother AI, which also comes back from the Prometheus movies, Covenant, stuff like that. The AI known as the ship Mother. That gets mentioned. And a lot of the Aliens franchise fans will get upset over one thing. Throughout this movie, there is no mentions of a xenomorph. There are no mentions of the other events. It's very closed, it's very pocketed, and in a way, it expands the universe. It's just like, what if those events, Space Marines are dealing with xenomorphs, while Deck, the Yautja, and the Yautjas are dealing with other drama, but Weyland-Yutani is the glue that makes both sides fight. Oh, I hit the mute button by fucking accident, my bad. Anyway, that's the glue. Weyland-Yutani is the glue that brings together, that I think is going to bring together the xenomorph and the Yautja into conflict, at least in this official continuity. So everybody has to erase Aliens versus Predator, the Aliens versus Predator movies out their head, because a lot of those two stuff that is established later on. So, but then you'll say, what about the skull at the end of Alien 2? That was mainly an Easter egg, but the fandom, because that Easter egg was so popular, the fandom, it was accepted through generalized that it was basically canon that the Yautja hunted xenomorphs at a different point in time. Now, anyway, in this facility, this is where it starts to feel like Alien. This is where it starts to feel like Alien. When we get to the Yutani base and the Kalisk is set free, along with some other alien creatures, to help take out the Wailing Yutani synthetics, as Dek and Thea take out the synthetics, and the child of the Kalisk imprinted on Dek, basically seeing Dek as its own, as its kind. And this is what plays a massive part. Dek becomes a hunter that doesn't hunt for the sake of glory, or he doesn't hunt for the sake of honor. He hunts to protect. He hunts to be a leading figure. You know, and Dek proves that he will protect his own. Hell, I would love to see a spin-off movie that shows how Kuwei became a hunter. And then, you know, like maybe Dek being born, and then you see the early days of why their father Injor. Because when you look at Dek and his brother, this is a little side note. When you look at Dek and his brother, they drew heavily from Lord of the Rings when it comes from Boromir and Faramir. The only difference is that obviously Kuwei doesn't lose his mind and tries to take the ring away from his brother, or try to take his gauntlet away, or cloak, or something like that. You know, you get where I'm going with that. But Kuwei demonstrates the bravery and the willing to sacrifice his life to protect those. Kuwei had a Boromir moment where Boromir held off all those Uruk-hai so Frodo could escape, even though it cost him his life to do it.
That should keep him distracted.
In this, Kuwei fighting their brother, or not fighting their brother, but fighting their father, is very reminiscent of fathers and sons throughout history going at it. And it shows the value of brotherhood among the Yautja. And it plays to the whole old ways versus the new ways. We don't know what the political climate is happening in the Yautja species, but I can tell through the actions of Dek's father, there is some form of civil unrest between different clans or species of predators. You know, that's all we have an understanding and idea of the possibilities. Now, going forward, like I said, they can't restructure a sequel like Badlands. Badlands, it's lightning in a bottle. You did this type of story once, you can't pull it off again. You know, you have to create a unique story going forward each time, which, I mean, that's obvious that that's the kind of shit that needs to be done. But instead of feeling like a cheap sequel, these sequels actually feel like they're worth waiting for, that they're worth putting time and investment for as fans. So, back to that final battle. All hell's breaking loose. Dek and Thea are trying to take out the Wailing Yutani and Tessa becomes the final villain, not only to Dek and her own sister, but to the Kalisk and the child, or the child of the Kalisk. So Thea is trying to guide Dek and warn him throughout the fight to watch out, or this, that, because remember, she's half of a body, she's half a synthetic body. There's only so much the girl could freaking do. Like physically. Now, what actually has me laughing my ass off, was that Tessa shows up in a fucking power armor, a power loader suit from fucking Aliens. The same thing Ripley used to throw the alien queen into space is the same thing that Tessa uses to try to fight the Callisk. And when you see that, it feels so fucking incredible. That you see something, you're like, holy shit, there goes the power loader. And it's actually fighting a creature worthy of its size, because the Callisk is about, I want to say, is about the same size as the alien queen. I could be wrong. You know, we don't know what the official size or descriptions or stats are on this creature. And speaking of which, actually, let me show off my new DLC. I got the Killer of Killers DLC. This is the Predator that went to Japan, the Oni. And for lack of a better word, he's broken. That's all I'm going to say. And that's why I'm going to set him as my freaking loadout to take him in. Because he's fast, he's strong, he's insane. And for those who haven't seen me play in a while, let me at least let me go through my characters now that I've made along the way. And this is my personal Chrome Dome created Predator. I think I need to take the shield off because I haven't been using it that much. Dual swords. And I never tried that. Well, I think I did. And a trident, how about that? There we go. So for the most part, like I said, in that final battle with Tessa, Tessa gets defeated, but something else also happens that's unexpected. Deck didn't kill the he didn't kill the Callisk. For once, Deck expressed something that it's rare, if at all, amongst the species. He saw that the Callisk did what it did for the protection and safety of its child. It wanted to protect its child. So the fact that the baby Callisk, who I kept calling him baby boy, I kept calling him baby Dewey throughout the fucking, when I'm in the movie theater and I'm like, oh shit, little baby Dewey. I don't know why I called him that. I just kept calling that. I'm sure he has an official name. Maybe I didn't catch it because I don't remember them mentioning a name. They recreation in the final battle for Deck. They recreated Arnold's gearing up sequence where he has to use the natural environment, the land, and items that he recovered. Deck does the same thing. He uses the fauna, he uses the elements of the planet Genna, and whatever items he has left to basically put weapons together, put items together, and then he's even more inspired because of his brother Kuwei. And yes, Deck has a crash out. Deck crashes out before this battle, but I can understand why. But when Deck goes into the Weyland-Yutani base, yeah, we should be lucky, or at least Yutani should be lucky that they only had synthetics running that base. If there was any humans running that base, those humans would have been fucked up. I'll tell you that right now. They would have gotten fucked up by Deck. Deck has proven himself to be a very, very, very great hunter. You know, but, and this is where we now get into the last part of the film. After Tessa destroys the Kalisk from the inside out, basically stopping its regenerative properties and prevented it from healing itself, Dek goes home after he kills Tessa and basically takes her metal skeleton or her metal skull as a trophy to present to his father. And you would think, this is where I thought Enjor would accept his son finally, because fucking Dek went to the planet Genna. He returned home, which is something they said is rare for any Yautja. When they go to the planet Genna, it's rare for them to return with their lives. Granted, the father doesn't need to know if he killed the Kalisk or not, because he killed something that killed the Kalisk. And in predator culture, if something kills what you're killing, like if you're hunting a monster and there's something else that kills that monster, like that destroys it from top to bottom, the one that did the killing is now seen as the superior target. So Dek shifted his focus and killed Tessa. But when he takes the skull to his father Enjor, his father still pulls a Fire Lord Ozai and rejects him. And in fact, he tries to send multiple guards to try to apprehend and kill Dek right then and there. And what's wild is, at the end of this movie, Dek is not the same Yautja that we saw at the beginning. He is not the same Yautja. You can see in his demeanor, in his fighting stance, in how confident he is. He finds his warrior spirit, but not in the conventional sense, and not in the traditional sense that all the Yautja have found before. That's what I'm trying to get at. The Yautja always deemed their hunts, boom, you are recognized. But here, it's different. Dek is still rejected. And as a matter of fact, not only is he still rejected, he doesn't care if he's still rejected. He just wanted to prove to himself that he could do it, that he could come back and survive such a task. Then, Enjor and Dek clash. And you're probably going to think, okay, Dek, what are you doing? You are going to beat your dad. Your dad's going to beat your fucking ass. Because it's like, how do you have this, he's an elder. But you could see that Dek, through his warrior spirit, not only overcomes his father, but he still showed his father mercy. He didn't, mercy in a twisted sense. Dek doesn't kill his father. The fully grown baby Kalisk, who marked Dek as its family, Dek now has a kaiju, basically. An invincible kaiju as his companion by the end of the film. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how wild that is? That Dek has his own fucking kaiju. But then he summons the new Kalisk, who is Baby Dewey. Dewey eats the King Predator from behind, basically. And then Dek goes inside of his home, I would assume his family's home, and all the other predators, even though you don't see it, he goes in and he comes out. And he has his cloak. So it's wild that his own family, I guess the other predators didn't attack him, but then suddenly you hear swords begin to ignite. He ignites his. Then you see, right near them, at the edge of a cliff, ships are pulling in. Warships. Yautja Predator warships. And you're probably wondering, pissed off somebody. One of the higher-ups, one of the other rulers or somebody the new Endor. But then Dex says the one thing that I never thought he would say. Thea asks him. She's like, oh, like, I'm a paraphrase. She's like, oh, another one. Or, who's this? Are we in trouble? Da, da, da. And then Deck ignites his sword and he says, it's my mother.
How many of these guys are there?
And then it just ends right there. It ends where you see Deck's mother. Like, you don't see her, like, personally, but you see the ships. And all the ships come in, boom. It ends right there.
That's our boy. He should have a security token on.
And here is where only one thing about the ending disappoints me.
How many of these guys are there?
You don't hear the original Predator drum beat. Yes, I know. Call me fucking petty. Call me fucking petty. But only very subtly in certain scenes. And it's very, very, like, hear it and you miss it in specific scenes. The original drums, the da-da-da, 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 or whatever, the Predator drum beat theme that you would hear. They played it in the trailer, for the teaser trailer. You hear the drum beats, and then it shifts to a new theme and everything like that. Not once, and not even during the important parts, not even during the final battle where it would be appropriate, or the end sequence where it would be appropriate, you don't hear the Predator theme. Like, you don't hear those the Brazilian drum beat theme. It's called the Brazilian drum beats, basically. You don't hear that. And throughout the course of the movie, I was just like, it was the only thing that was disappointing me. But then when I sat back and I thought about it, yes, it was disappointing because I didn't hear, because, like, I am a huge buff for specific movie soundtracks or specific movie themes. My favorite theme of all time is the Battle of the Heroes from Star Wars. Now, the Predator theme is memorable. You know the theme, and every Predator movie up to this point has had the theme. And I knew I was being chased. I heard the footsteps. It's like each movie had its own variation of the drum beats or different, different styles, but the theme was still the same. But in this movie, no theme in sight. And I was, I was disappointed that I didn't hear it. It probably would have elevated that final scene even more. That when you see Deck's mother, the ships pull up, that would have been the perfect time to play the theme, and then boom, go to black. At least play it there. Or when he was preparing himself for the battle at the Wayland base, getting his supplies, you could have played the theme there. If that's really, and that's really my only other issue with the film was just, I didn't hear the traditional Predator beats. As much as I would have wanted to, I didn't get them.
Killing the power definitely sent out an alert, so prepare for hostiles.
But I plan to see the movie again. I do. And it's rare when I want to see a movie more than once in the theater. That just shows you that movie was fucking awesome. Of course, there's going to be nitpicks, and of course, there's a lot of things that are not going to bode well with people. This is a movie that really... It's an enigma within both the Predator fan base and the Alien fan base. The film's an enigma. And I feel that in the future, if you're going to make films like this, keep it more in line with letting us know other events in the universe. I get it. This was meant to feel like a standalone that still takes place within the universe. I get that, so the references had to be lower. But I was disappointed that I didn't get a lot of, or at least a good amount of overt references. Alright, Bennett. I would have been happy seeing a lot of overt references to the other films. Hell, I would laugh if Deck made a joke saying, "Get to the ship!" in reference of Arnold saying, "Get to the chopper!" It'd be funny.
Finally. Now you should be able to open the thing.
So, Predator Badlands as a whole, I'm glad we got this film. Dan Trachtenberg, the director, he has been on a ball. Okay? He started this universe reset, or this revival of the universe with Prey,
Take anything you find in there.
continuing with Killer of Killers, and now Badlands. I'm really excited for what he's going to handle in the future. People have asked him, will there be an AVP? Will there be a new AVP? And he said, not right now. There will be, but not right now. There's a time and a place for it. Now, where do I personally think we can go forward with this? And I'm also taking into consideration what Killer of Killers also sets up. And Killer of Killers sets up that warriors, doesn't matter what timeline are you from, not timeline, but no matter what period of time you are from, predators will preserve you in cryostasis, and they could wake you up at any point, and you will be as young, strong, and basically you are in your prime when they take you. And through the predator's eyes, it's not seen as, oh, you're a trophy, you're on display for eternity. No. They want to see you in action. Predators want to see you in action. And if you can fight and survive or impress them, they'll either A, you could have a place amongst them, or you would be just respected as a really powerful warrior. So it's just like that's just one of the only things I could think of. Now, for an AVP film, I think that they need to use the concept of the cryo freezing and create a Marine team based on every surviving hero throughout the series. Have Dutch. Well, make an excuse on why Arnold, because it's a deleted scene from Killer of Killers, but I think it should be a deleted scene for a reason, because it does cause a continuity error. Because in a deleted scene, you see Harrigan and you see Dutch frozen, but they were frozen the same way we saw in the first two movies. So those should be the only two that are not in frozen stasis cryopods. They should be brought in. Yes. I mean, yes, they could be frozen, but you could say that they were frozen at a later time, so that's why they're older. Or they were unfrozen, and they were on the Predator homeworld this whole time with them. There's just a multiple of ways to try to get them involved. Have a team member, a Marine, be made up of each character, from Naru to Dutch to Royce. Where's Royce from Predators? I'm sure him and Isabella are still alive. Create a team of each of these characters and have Deck as your Yautja for the movie. For that movie, to have him fight a xenomorph. Because the whole way to make an Alien vs. Predator movie work, you need to not only have the alien and the Predator, you need to have the Marines, or you need to at least have a group of soldiers caught in the mix. And if you have a protagonist, Yautja, aka Deck, against the antagonistic xenomorphs, and yes, you're probably like, well, Weyland-Yutani's antagonistic, yes, but not their Marines. The Marines do question the company from time to time, and, they don't like that they're viewed as expendable by the company. So, you can have a lot of stuff. A lot of different things could occur. But for now, Badlands does give us a solid foundation. We do have a solid foundation with Badlands. Now, like I said, Predator films in future should not be structured like Badlands. Badlands was a one and done type of style. Now, don't get me wrong. Bring back the characters you have created. Bring back the characters established in this movie. Bring back Deck. Bring back Thea. It's already established that they're their own trio. Him, the Kalisk, and Thea. They're their own group. They're basically their own clan. And that's how Deck views it. She's his clan. So, Where can they go in the future? Or where can they go forward with this? We just have to wait and see. But Badlands did start us off in a pretty strong spot. You know, we do got a pretty strong baseline to begin with for Predator going forward. So, if I was to grade the film or rate it, I give it about a 75% to 80%. It's a B plus to me. It's not perfect, by no means, but it stands alongside the films that has come before. The good Predator films that has come before. It not only stands on its own, it can stand alongside them as well. And it's going to take a lot of people to get used to this, because it's still very off. A lot of people still feel off-putting that a predator is the protagonist. But think about it. That's never been done before. Yes, we've had predators who have aided humans in certain situations, or have fought side by side in the comics, but to actually see some things like that brought into a film, a live action film, it just shows that the universe is rich, and I'm glad that we have expanded media for the Predator franchise, because now they have so much lore to work with, so much side media that they could draw from and bring in. And Dan Trachtenberg has proven that that is something he looks like he's willing to do, because you have no idea how many things I've spotted in this movie that will remind you of the comic books, or things that have been introduced in the Predator comic books. So, by Dark Horse, the same people that did the old Star Wars comics. So, yeah, Predator Badlands, great film. You know, I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope to see it. You know, I plan to see it again real soon. And if you're somebody who hasn't seen it yet because you were worried that it's not the Predator film you were looking for, a lot of people have that concern, and I understand. But then there's a lot of people that are watching it, and they're like, okay, you know, people got to know when to eat crow, basically. And this is one of those films that, let's just say, the fandom menace are being called out, or the grifting channels are being called out for lying, because they are actively lying about the movie. So yeah, just note that if you see any videos from Critical Drinker or anyone from his cult, yes, actively know that that anything they're saying about it, they are actively lying, because when you listen to the videos of them talking about the movie, they are literally not even describing what happens in the movie. I mean, they are, but not in how the movie is presenting it. They're presenting it in their own bias, we hate everything lenses on. So they're already discredited as it is from the get-go. Anyway, Zephyr John Kyo 3D Gaming. Be sure to like, subscribe, favorite, and I'm sorry that I couldn't get Kiyoma to appear, but at least he was here in the chat. So I want everyone to take care. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'm gonna chill in my I'm gonna just chill and enjoy my night to myself. So see you all next time.